The sun had just begun to rise over the quiet plains when the wind carried a soft chill through the tall grass. The sky was painted with strokes of pink and gold, and the long horizon looked calm, as if nothing in the world could disturb it. But inside the old barn on the far edge of the Dawson Ranch, a young woman named Clara stood trembling. Her hands were wrapped around her own arms, and her breath came in small, nervous pieces. She had been on the road for days, running from trouble that she could not face alone anymore. Clara was not someone who usually asked for help. She had grown up working hard, keeping quiet, and managing her own problems, even when those problems felt too heavy for someone her size. But the last few weeks had pushed her beyond what she could carry. And now she had reached the one place she thought might be safe. She didn't know the cowboy who owned this land, but she had heard stories in the nearby town. Stories of a man who never turned away someone in real trouble. They called him gentle-hearted, even though he looked like someone who had seen too many harsh seasons. His name was Cole Dawson. Clara had arrived before dawn, exhausted and afraid, her dress torn from travel and her voice too weak to call out. She had pushed open the barn door and collapsed beside a stack of hay, hoping someone would find her before she fainted from hunger or fear. For a long moment, she stayed there, breathing in the smell of hay and dust, until footsteps approached from outside. Heavy boots, slow, steady, a cowboy's walk. Cole stepped inside the barn, carrying a small lantern. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his hair messy from sleep, and there was a small cut on his cheek from yesterday's work with the horses. He didn't expect to see anyone inside, certainly not a frightened young woman standing in the dim glow of the lantern, looking like she might disappear if he spoke too loudly. He froze for a moment, his hand tightening slightly around the lantern handle. "Ma'am?" he asked quietly. He didn't move forward, didn't reach out. His voice was low, calm, and full of steady caution. "You hurt, or hungry, or are you lost?" Clara swallowed. Her eyes were wide, her heartbeat too fast. She wanted to speak but didn't know how to start. He didn't look dangerous. He looked tired, yes, but also gentle in a way she couldn't quite describe. His eyes were warm, almost kind, and that surprised her more than anything. Most men she'd met lately had been loud, rough, or careless, but Cole didn't seem like that at all. She tried to answer. I didn't mean to come in, I just—" "You're safe here," he said softly. "Take your time." Something inside her loosened at those words, but her fear still clung to her like a shadow. Cole slowly set the lantern on a nearby crate, making sure not to startle her. He kept a respectful distance, not wanting to make her feel cornered. "You look like you've been walking a long time," he said. "Do you need water, food, or someone to listen?" Clara nodded weakly, her voice still stuck in her throat. She watched as he reached for his belt, not fast or careless, but slowly, as if he wanted her to know he meant no harm. He removed the leather strap holster where his small ranch knife was kept and placed it on the ground, far away from him. "No tools, no weapons," he said with a steady voice. "Just me. You're safe." That simple act nearly broke her. She hadn't seen anyone treat her with such careful respect in a long time. Her breath shivered and she whispered, "Please, don't be rough." Cole froze. The plea hit him straight in the chest, not because she had said something frightening, but because of the fear tucked behind the words. Her voice was small, trembling like a leaf in the wind. It was the voice of someone who had been hurt before, someone who expected more harm, someone who didn't know if kindness even existed anymore. He didn't move, not even an inch. "Ma'am," he said softly, his voice almost a whisper, "I would never be rough with you. Not now, not ever." Clara lowered her gaze, her fingers tightening around her sleeves. She hadn't meant to say it. The words slipped out before she could stop them. She didn't want him to think poorly of her. She just panicked. Cole took a quiet breath and gently crouched down, not close to her, but low enough to show he wasn't standing over her. "You're safe," he repeated. "Nobody here will hurt you. You have my word." That promise steadied her a little. She lifted her eyes, searching his face for any sign of dishonesty, but she found none. His expression held nothing but concern, the kind that came from a man who had lived long enough to know what fear looked like. "Can I get you some water?" Cole asked softly. "Your lips look dry. You must be exhausted." Clara hesitated, but then nodded. He stood up slowly and walked toward the small table near the barn entrance where he kept his morning supplies. She watched him carefully, her heartbeat calming just a little. He poured fresh water into a tin cup and brought it to her with both hands, making sure she didn't feel pressured. "Here," he said gently. "Small sips." Clara reached for the cup. Her fingers brushed the edge, but before she could lift it, her hands shook. Cole noticed and stepped back instead of stepping closer. "I'll set it right here," he said, placing the cup on a crate between them. "Take it when you're ready." Gratefully, she picked it up, her hands still trembling. The water was cool and refreshing. She took a few small sips, then closed her eyes, letting the relief wash through her. Cole watched her carefully, not judging, not pressuring, simply making sure she was okay. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said quietly. "Not unless you want to." Clara lowered the cup. A small tear slid down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. I thought someone might help." "You came to the right place," Cole said, his voice warm. "This ranch protects people who need it." She looked at him again, her fear slowly changing into cautious hope. "Why are you being so kind?" Cole shrugged softly. "Because that's what folks should do. Because I'd hope someone out there would help me too if I ever needed it." Clara stared at him, a strange heaviness lifting from her chest. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. Cole glanced toward the barn door. "It's cold out there. I can bring you a blanket, and if you need rest, the loft has clean hay and a warm corner." "You don't have to be afraid." Clara hesitated, then whispered, "Thank you." Her voice was soft, but it carried something. Trust, maybe, or at least the beginning of it. Cole nodded gently. "I'll be right back." As he walked out to get the blanket, Clara let out a breath she had been holding for too long. The barn felt safer now, warmer somehow, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if the trouble behind her would return. But she knew one thing for certain. She had found someone who saw her fear and met it with kindness. Someone who froze not out of anger, but out of care. And maybe, just maybe, this cowboy was the one person she could trust. Cole returned to the barn carrying a thick wool blanket he kept for cold mornings. The sunrise had now fully broken across the fields, filling the ranch with soft orange light. As he stepped inside again, Clara lifted her head, still sitting near the stack of hay where she had first collapsed. She looked tired, but there was a little more color in her face after the water. Cole held the blanket loosely in his hands, making sure she didn't feel pressured. "This is clean," he said quietly. "If you're cold, it'll help?" Clara nodded, her fingers still trembling a little as she reached for it. He placed it gently within her reach and stepped back again, giving her space. She pulled it around her shoulders slowly, as though unsure she deserved something warm. The blanket covered her small frame, and she released a long, shaky breath when the warmth settled in. "You look like you didn't sleep last night," Cole said in a soft, understanding tone. "You're welcome to rest here. Nobody will disturb you." Clara looked down at the ground. I didn't sleep. Not properly, she admitted. Every noise made me jump. Cole leaned against a wooden post, crossing his arms in a relaxed way. Not threatening, not towering. You're safe here. You can sleep without worry. A silence settled between them, but it wasn't heavy like before. It felt gentler, calm. Clara looked around the barn, taking in the horses still dozing in their stalls, the quiet rustling of hay, the open rafters overhead. Everything about the place made her feel protected, as if the old barn itself had its arms around her. "Is this your ranch?" she asked softly. Cole nodded. "Inherited it from my father," he said. "Been working it alone since he passed." "I'm sorry," she whispered automatically. He gave a small, warm smile. "Life gives and takes. We just keep going." Clara nodded, her eyes drifting to the floor again. She looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't know where to begin. Cole noticed, but he didn't push. He had learned over the years that some stories needed time to come out. Before she could gather her thoughts, a loud whinny echoed from one of the stalls. Clara jumped, gripping the blanket tightly, her eyes wide. Cole lifted a hand gently. "It's okay. That's just Ranger. He gets loud when he wants breakfast." Clara exhaled slowly, calming down. "I'm sorry. I get scared easily now." "You don't have to apologize for that," Cole said. "Not here." He went to feed the horse, giving Clara a moment to breathe. She watched him scoop the grain and speak softly to Ranger, his voice low and soothing. Something about the way he moved, steady, patient, respectful, made her shoulders relax bit by bit. After feeding the horses, Cole returned and sat on an overturned bucket, still keeping distance so she never felt trapped. "When you're ready," he said gently, "you can tell me what brought you here, but only if you want to." Clara pulled the blanket tighter. Her eyes glistened with something painful, but she took a deep breath. "I didn't mean to run this far," she whispered. "I just couldn't stay." Cole nodded, letting her continue at her own pace. "There were people looking for me," she said. "People who wanted something I couldn't give." Her voice shook. "So I left. It was the only choice I had." Cole's jaw tightened, not in anger toward her, but toward whatever had chased her so far she had collapsed on a stranger's ranch. "You did the right thing coming here," he said quietly. She shook her head slowly. "I didn't know where I was going. I just kept walking until my legs gave out." "Well," Cole said with a small, warm smile, "your legs walked you to a safe place." Clara blinked a few times, trying to hold back tears, someone believing her, someone saying she wasn't foolish or weak. It felt strange, but in a comforting way. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me," Cole replied. "Helping folks is part of who I am." Just then, Clara's stomach growled softly, loud enough for both of them to hear. She blushed and looked away in embarrassment. Cole pretended not to notice at first, giving her a moment to gather herself. "You hungry?" he asked gently. Clara nodded, still shy. "I'll get you something to eat," he said. "I've got some bread, dried fruit, and warm stew from last night. It's simple, but it's good." She smiled faintly. "That would be nice." Cole headed toward the house, leaving Clara alone for a moment in the barn. She took a slow breath, letting the quiet sink into her. It had been so long since she had felt safe enough to even sit still. The barn smelled of hay, dust, and horses, all earthy, grounding scents. They reminded her of a time before everything went wrong. When Cole returned, he carried a plate, a wooden bowl, and a battered tin fork. The food smelled warm and comforting. Clara's eyes softened at the sight. "I hope this is okay," he said, handing the plate to her carefully. She nodded. "It's perfect." She ate slowly at first. but soon her hunger took over. Cole watched quietly, pleased to see her gaining a little strength. When she finished, he collected the dishes and set them aside, then returned to sit nearby. "You look better already," he said. Clara let out a tiny laugh. "I look terrible." "Not to me," he said gently. "You look like someone who's been strong for too long." Her smile faded, turning into something more emotional. "I don't feel strong." "Most strong people don't," he replied. "They just keep going anyway." Clara's eyes filled again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was relief. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, embarrassed. "I don't know why I'm crying so much." "You don't have to hide your tears here," Cole said. "This isn't a place you have to pretend to be okay." Clara took a shaky breath. "You're different from other people." "I just try to be fair," Cole said, shrugging slightly. "Life's already hard enough." A long silence followed. Not empty, just quiet, comfortable. Clara relaxed against the barn wall, letting the warmth of the blanket and the food settle in. After a few minutes, Cole stood. "I need to check on the fences. They've been loose since the last storm, but I won't go far. If you need anything, holler and I'll hear you." Clara nodded, watching him head out into the sunlight. She listened to his boots crunch on the dirt, then heard the faint sound of his hammer in the distance. While he worked, Clara stayed in the barn. She walked slowly around, touching the soft hay and watching the horses. One of them, a gentle brown mare, walked toward her. Clara held out her hand timidly, and the mare sniffed it before nudging her shoulder gently. Clara let out a soft laugh, surprised at the friendly gesture. "You're sweet," she whispered to the horse. She hadn't smiled like that in weeks. When Cole returned later, he noticed the change in her immediately. "Looks like Daisy likes you," he said with a small grin. "She's kind," Clara said softly. "Animals can sense things," Cole replied. "They know when someone is hurting." Clara lowered her eyes again, but she didn't feel embarrassed this time. Instead, she felt understood. Cole approached slowly, still keeping distance out of respect. "You're welcome to stay here as long as you need," he said. No rush, no pressure. Her breath caught. "You really mean that?" "I do," he answered. "Everyone deserves a safe place." "And you look like you've been searching for one for a long time." Clara held the blanket close, her eyes warming with quiet gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," Cole said kindly. "Just rest, heal. That's enough." The wind blew softly through the barn doors, carrying in the scent of open fields and fresh morning air. For the first time since her long journey began, Clara felt a small piece of peace settle inside her. She was still scared, still unsure of what came next, but she no longer felt alone. The cowboy who froze at her whispered plea wasn't someone to fear. He was someone she could perhaps trust, maybe even rely on. And as she wrapped the blanket tighter and leaned back against the hay, she realized something important. This ranch might be the place where her life would finally begin to mend. The morning sun rose higher over the Dawson Ranch, spreading warmth across the fields and barns. Clara sat quietly on a pile of hay, holding the blanket close around her shoulders. She was still tired, but she felt safer than she had in weeks. Cole's kindness, his calm voice, and the gentle atmosphere of the ranch had slowly begun to ease the weight she carried inside her. Outside, she could hear Cole working on the fences again. The rhythmic sound of hammering came and went in steady beats. Every once in a while, he whistled softly, and the horses responded with gentle snorts. It was a simple, peaceful sound, one that made Clara feel like the world wasn't as frightening as she once thought. After a few minutes, she stood up and stepped carefully to the barn door. The light was bright, but she blinked through it until she spotted Cole near the far fence line. He had taken off his vest and set it aside, leaving only his shirt that was rolled up at the sleeves. He looked focused, patient, and strong in a quiet way. Not frightening, not intimidating, just capable. Someone who handled problems without hurting others. Clara stepped outside slowly, letting the warm sunlight wash over her face. She hadn't felt sunlight like this in a long time. Not the kind that felt safe, not the kind that didn't bring danger with it. Cole noticed her and raised a hand. "You feeling all right?" he called, his tone friendly but not loud. She nodded, walking toward him with small steps. "I didn't want to stay inside while you did all the work," she said quietly. "You've already done too much for me." Cole shook his head. "You're a guest here, Clara. You don't need to worry about helping." She hesitated a moment before asking, "Can I just stay nearby? I don't want to sit alone." Cole gave a gentle smile. "Of course. You can sit on that fence post over there. It's sturdy." Clara climbed onto the low wooden post, keeping her blanket wrapped around her. She watched as Cole tightened the wire on the fence, inspecting each section to make sure the animals couldn't wander off. He moved with steady precision, never rushing, never forcing anything. "You work hard," Clara said softly. Cole wiped his forehead with his sleeve. "Ranch doesn't run itself," he joked lightly. "But I enjoy it. Gives me something to focus on." Clara nodded, her eyes drifting across the wide landscape. She had never seen such open space before. Back where she came from, the roads were crowded, the neighborhoods noisy, and the people didn't look strangers in the eye. But here, everything felt open and honest. "Were you always alone here?" she asked, her voice gentle. Cole paused. "Mostly," he admitted. "My father passed a few years ago. Since then, it's been just me and the animals. Sometimes I think the horses talk to me more than people do." Clara smiled softly. "Maybe that's not a bad thing. Horses listen better." "True enough," Cole chuckled. "They don't judge, they don't interrupt, and they don't carry gossip." Clara's smile faded a little, and she looked down at her hands. "People can be cruel sometimes." Cole's expression shifted, softening, becoming more serious, but still warm. "You don't have to explain if it's hard," he said. "But if you ever want to talk, I'm here." Clara stayed quiet for a long moment. She watched the wind move through the grass, bending it gently. She listened to the birds singing in the trees. Finally, she whispered, "I left because I was tired of being afraid. I kept thinking maybe if I walked far enough, I'd find a place where people weren't cruel." Cole nodded slowly. "You found one," he said. Her breath trembled, but she didn't cry this time. She simply nodded. A few minutes passed as Cole finished tightening the last section of the fence. Then he dusted off his hands and walked toward Clara. "Fence is fixed. That's one job done," he said lightly. "What other jobs do you have?" Clara asked. "Well," Cole said, looking around, "the chickens need feeding. Firewood needs stacking. And the wagon wheel needs checking. Always something to do." Clara hesitated before saying, "Can I help? Even a little?" Her voice was hopeful, almost shy. Cole raised his eyebrows. "You sure? You should be resting." She shook her head. "I want to feel useful. I want to feel like I can do something, even if it's small." Cole thought for a moment, then nodded gently. "All right. How about something simple? You can help me gather eggs from the chicken coop. It's quiet work." Clara gave a tiny smile. "I can do that." Cole walked with her toward the coop. The chickens clucked softly as they approached, moving around the small wooden enclosure. Clara stepped inside carefully, her movements slow and uncertain. Cole watched from the doorway, guiding her with a calm voice. "Move slowly so you don't scare them," he said. "And keep one hand under the egg so it doesn't drop. Clara followed his instructions. She moved gently between the chickens, picking up eggs with careful hands. Her touch was so soft that even the jumpiest hen didn't panic. Cole watched her with a quiet smile, impressed by her gentleness. "You're good at this," he said. Clara blushed slightly. "It's just eggs." "Still," he replied, "you're doing well." She finished collecting the eggs, carrying them in a small basket. When she stepped out of the coop, she handed the basket to Cole with a shy but proud expression. "These are perfect," Cole said, inspecting the eggs. "Not a single crack." Clara felt a small warmth grow inside her, a feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride, confidence, something good. "What next?" she asked softly. Cole laughed a little. "You really want to work today, huh?" She nodded. "Keeping busy helps me feel normal." Cole understood that more than she realized. "All right," he said. "Let's check the firewood together." They walked toward the wood pile near the shed. Cole picked up a few logs and showed Clara how to stack them properly so they wouldn't fall. She mimicked his movements, her hands steadying as she gained comfort. "You learn fast," Cole said. Clara smiled gently. "You teach kindly." Cole paused at that. "I try," he said softly. "I never saw the point in yelling. It doesn't help anyone." As the sun reached midday, they finished stacking the wood together. Clara wiped her forehead with the edge of the blanket, and Cole perked up with a suggestion. "How about lunch?" he said. "I can make something simple. Fresh eggs, bread, maybe some vegetables." Clara nodded gratefully. "I'd like that." Inside the small ranch house, Clara followed Cole quietly. The place was humble but tidy, filled with warm wooden furniture and simple decorations that spoke of a life lived honestly. Cole motioned for her to sit at the table while he prepared lunch. Clara watched him move around the kitchen, noticing the small details about him, the way he stirred the pan gently, the way he hummed under his breath, the way he kept glancing over to make sure she was okay. His kindness wasn't loud or showy. It was quiet, steady, real. After a few minutes, he placed a plate in front of her. "Hope you like it," he said. "It smells wonderful," Clara replied. They ate together, the silence comfortable and warm. Clara felt her body relax with each bite. The food filling not just her stomach, but something deeper inside, a sense of belonging. Halfway through the meal, Clara spoke softly. "I don't remember the last time I sat at a table with someone who wasn't angry." Cole set down his fork. His eyes softened. "You deserve peace, Clara," he said gently. "And you're welcome at this table any time." Her eyes shimmered with emotion, but she didn't cry. Instead, she took a steady breath. "Thank you, Cole, for everything." "You don't need to thank me," he replied. "I just want you to feel safe here." After they ate, Cole noticed Clara rubbing her arms through the blanket. She still didn't seem fully warm despite the sun. "You can rest inside if you'd like," he said. "The sofa is clean and comfortable." Clara nodded shyly. "Maybe just for a little while." Cole guided her to the sofa, brought another blanket and set it gently over her legs. "If you need anything," he said softly, "I'll be right outside." Clara looked up at him, her eyes full of trust. "I believe you," she whispered. Those words struck him deeply. Someone believing in him, trusting him. It meant more than he expected. Cole stepped outside, giving her space to rest. As the door closed softly behind him, Clara leaned back against the cushion, closing her eyes for a moment. She felt safe. Really safe. For the first time in months, she wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't flinching at every sound. She was healing. And as she drifted into a quiet, peaceful sleep, she realized something she had been too afraid to admit before. Cole wasn't just someone who helped her. He was someone whose presence made her feel whole again. Maybe the ranch wasn't just a safe place. Maybe it was the beginning of a new life she never thought she'd have. Clara slept longer than she expected. When she finally opened her eyes, the soft afternoon light filled the small ranch house. The room felt warm and peaceful, and for a moment she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the safety of the ranch, the quiet kindness of the cowboy, and the blanket covering her legs. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Outside the window, she saw Cole carrying a bale of hay toward the barn. His movements were steady, calm, and full of purpose. It struck her how safe she felt simply watching him work. She didn't hear shouting, didn't feel fear crawling up her spine. Instead, she felt a gentle kind of peace, the kind that came from being around someone who meant no harm. She stood up, folded the blanket neatly, and stepped outside onto the porch. The air smelled of fresh earth and growing grass. Morning chill had faded, replaced by the comfortable warmth of late afternoon. Cole looked up when he heard the door creak. "Feeling better?" he called, wiping sweat from his forehead. Clara nodded. "Yes, I slept without waking up scared. That hasn't happened in a long time." Cole gave a small, genuine smile. "I'm glad. You needed rest." Clara walked toward him, her step still soft but more confident than before. "You've done so much for me," she said. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't owe me anything," Cole said simply. "Helping people is the right thing to do." Clara looked down, her fingers brushing the fabric of her dress. "I feel like I've been a burden." Cole shook his head. "You're not a burden. You're someone who needed a safe place. That's all." His words settled over her like sunlight. She took a slow breath and looked around the ranch. The horses grazing in the distance, the chickens pecking near the coop, the wide fields stretching out in every direction. It all felt like a world far away from the troubles she had escaped. "What will you do now?" Cole asked gently. "When you feel strong enough to leave?" Clara hesitated. The question made her chest tighten in a strange way, not from fear but from something else. She didn't want to leave, not yet, maybe not ever. The thought surprised her, but it felt true. "I don't know," she admitted softly. "I don't have anyone waiting for me. No home, no family, nothing to return to." Cole listened without interrupting. His brown eyes were warm and patient. "You're welcome to stay here," he said finally, "as long as you want, for as many days as you need. You don't have to rush into a decision." Clara felt something small and hopeful rise in her chest. "Do you really mean that?" Cole nodded. "I wouldn't offer if I didn't." She looked down at the ground, trying to hide the shy smile forming on her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. They spent the next hour working side by side. Cole showed Clara how to water the horses properly, how to refill the grain trough, and how to brush the animals gently so they stayed calm. Clara learned quickly, her hands growing steadier with each task. Working on the ranch made her feel grounded, like she was becoming a part of something steady and honest. After finishing the chores, Cole led her to a small wooden bench near the corral. The sky had begun turning shades of orange and pink as the sun slowly descended. They sat quietly, watching the horses graze. Clara breathed in the peaceful silence, feeling the worries of her past loosen their grip. "I haven't felt this calm in years," she said softly. Cole glanced at her. "You deserve calm," he said. "Everyone does." Clara's eyes filled with emotion, but she blinked the tears away. She didn't want to cry again. She wanted to hold on to this peace, this moment, this feeling of being safe beside someone who didn't expect anything from her. As the sky darkened, Cole stood. "Let's get dinner started," he said. "It'll get colder soon." Inside the house, he prepared a simple stew while Clara sliced bread and washed vegetables. They worked together easily, their movements fitting into a comfortable rhythm. Clara found herself humming softly, a sign even she didn't recognize at first. When they sat down to eat, the warm meal felt like a gift. Clara ate slowly, savoring the food, the quiet, and the presence of someone who didn't judge her. After dinner, Cole cleaned the dishes while Clara dried them. When they finished, he brought out a small oil lamp and set it on the table. Its soft glow filled the room with gentle light. "Can I ask you something?" Clara said, her voice careful but curious. "Of course," Cole replied. "Why did you help me?" she asked. "Most people would have sent a stranger away." Cole leaned back slightly, thinking. "Because I've known what it feels like to need help," he said quietly. "And because nobody should be alone when they're scared." Clara held his gaze, her heart warming at his honesty. "You're a good man." "Cole," he looked away shyly. "I just try to do right." Clara smiled, small but real. "You did right by me." A gentle silence filled the room. Outside, the night wind rustled through the trees, creating a soothing sound. Cole stood and lit another lamp, keeping the house warm and bright without making the light too strong. "You can stay inside tonight," he said softly. "The sofa or the guest room, it's up to you. I want you to feel comfortable." Clara's breath caught. "A guest room?" Cole nodded. "It's small, but it's clean. I can prepare it for you." "Could I see it?" she asked. "Of course." He led her down the short hallway to a modest room with a simple bed, a wooden chair, and a quilt folded neatly at the end. The window looked out at the fields, where the stars were beginning to appear. The room smelled of cedar and fresh air. Clara ran her hand over the quilt. "It's beautiful," she whispered, "and peaceful." Cole smiled. "I hope it helps you sleep." She turned to him. "Thank you, Cole, for everything, for believing me, for not turning me away, for treating me like I matter." "You do matter," he said gently. "More than you know." Clara's eyes softened at his words. She felt seen, valued, and cared for, things she had not felt in a long time. Cole stood by the door. "I'll be in the other room if you need anything," he said. "You're safe here." Clara nodded. "I believe you," she whispered again, the same words she had spoken earlier. But this time, they carried full trust. Cole stepped out and closed the door softly, giving her privacy. Clara sat on the bed, letting the quiet settle into her heart. She touched the quilt, feeling its warmth even before pulling it over her legs. She lay back slowly, listening to the gentle sounds of the ranch at night, the horses shifting in their stalls, the wind brushing against the windows, the faint clinking of dishes as Cole cleaned up in the kitchen. Every sound made her feel safe, not startled. As she drifted off to sleep, she realized something deeply true. This place was no longer just a refuge. It was becoming home. And Cole, he wasn't just the cowboy who found her. He was someone steady, someone gentle, someone who saw her pain without judgment, someone she could trust with her future. The next morning, Clara woke before sunrise. She stepped outside and found Cole already tending to the horses. When he looked up and smiled at her, she felt warmth bloom inside her chest. "Morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied softly. In that simple exchange, something unspoken passed between them. Comfort, trust, and the beginning of something wider and brighter than either had expected. She walked toward him, her steps sure and steady. "I want to stay," she said quietly, her heart steady. "Not just for a day, not just to hide. I want to stay, if you'll have me here." Cole froze for a moment, not out of fear, not out of shock, but out of quiet, heartfelt emotion. "You can stay," he said, his voice warm and full, "as long as you want." And just like that, Clara felt her new life begin. One built not on fear, but on safety, healing, and the gentle strength of a cowboy who knew how to listen. The ranch had given her shelter. Cole had given her trust. And together, they stepped into a future neither of them had expected. But both of them were ready to embrace.